Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, we have a rather odd situation here. Why would a man who is the First Minister of Scotland not wish to do the utmost he can to protect the citizens of Scotland? Why would he not insist upon lie detector tests, which are used in England, not being applied north of the border? Now, these are applied to people convicted of tourism, the Terrys people. They, when they come out of prison, are given lie detector tests, and if they fail, then they go back to prison. Now, since these people are predominantly of one particular persuasion, shall we say, is it any wonder that Humza Yousaf does not want these things introduced, does not want to protect the people of Scotland from the people who would do them harm, especially as we know who these people particularly are. He failed to do it as Justice Minister, and now he's FM. He's also insisting really that it shouldn't be necessary. He brands them Jeremy Kyle-like devices. But actually, they do have their place, and it's worked out very successfully in England, and they have indeed put people back into prison and protected the people of England from the people that would do them harm. Obviously, not a consideration of the most important Muslim in Scotland. Let's have a look at this story and see why he thinks it's a bad idea. Here goes. So, tourist lie detector scheme rejected by Humza Yousaf as, like Jeremy Kyle, is labelled a success in England. The UK government introduced mandatory lie detector tests for convicted tourists and have labelled it a success. But the Scottish Government's then Justice Secretary, who's now the First Minister, labelled them Jeremy Kyle polygraph tests and rejected their use north of the border because the last thing he wants is friends of his having to go back to prison. Powers which allow authorities to give tourists, and we don't mean tourists obviously, we mean the other type, lie detector tests has been labelled a success in England after Humza Yousaf rejected similar plans in Scotland. The tough new laws were introduced south of the border in June 21 in the wake of the 2019 London Bridge attack. It means that all offenders sentenced to more than a year in prison for tourism and assessed as having a high risk of committing serious harm must take a polygraph test within 3 months of their release from prison. My big question is, why the hell are they ever being released from prison? They should surely just be tumbled onto a plane and flown out of the country. I don't particularly care which country they're flown to, but you can send them to some medieval shithole whence they came. It's all the same to them, isn't it? Anyway, they also face an examination up to 6 months later to ensure they're not a risk. Those who refuse are automatically recalled to prison. Now, the Times have reported that 4 convicted tourists have been returned to jail after failing lie detector tests since they were introduced. And in a review into the use of the polygraphs, it also revealed that the new information came to light in almost 3/4 of the tests carried out since they were introduced in June 21. So they're doing these tests and they're gleaning new information and helping to break up other potential attacks. So they are undoubtedly good things, and indeed they should be used on a regular basis with anyone seen as being likely to, be one of those people that is likely to commit these crimes. A furious row broke out over the topic back then when the Justice Secretary, Mr Yousaf, rejected a request from the UK government to implement the lie detector plan of the counter-Tura and sentencing bill. He even dubbed them Jeremy Kyle-like in a series of tweets. He said, "We don't use Jeremy Kyle polygraph tests in our justice system in Scotland. Never have, never will. UK governments want power to introduce them in Scotland without the consent of ScotGov and Parliament. This measure won't keep us safe. It's now been proven that yes, it will." They're finding more information, they're finding these people, and so yes, it is proving that. So once again, Humza Yousaf making claims that he can't substantiate because what he's saying is actually the complete opposite of reality. Not surprising, really. I think, though, surely Westminster can force this in under certain other rules because intelligence, for example, MI5, MI6, the other sort of various organisations we have that involve themselves with these things, they're nationwide. They're not devolved. And surely Someone like MI5 could pick these people up and do them, regardless of where they are. You know, put them on the test, take them to a little undisclosed location, as it's known, and question them. Sometimes question them in a, let's just say, a very strong manner, if you get my drift, and get the information out of them and double check that they're not going to represent a threat. I think that would be the best thing. I've got certainly no qualms about, rigorous questioning in an undisclosed location. I don't care about it. They gave up their rights when they went down the path they chose. I don't see why we should be overly bothered with how they are treated afterwards. I've got no compunction on that. Anyway, what's worrying, he said, is the UK government want to be able to bypass Scottish Parliament and government and have power to introduce polygraph tests in our system without our consent. Justice is devolved, hence why they would need an LCM. Justice may be devolved, but as I say, security isn't, and it can easily be overcome, and I think it needs to. He also wrote to the UK government to say that he was unconvinced by policy merits of the use of polygraph in Scotland. No, what he's unconvinced is that he knows if this is introduced, it will be, let's just say, people like him who would be affected most, because people like him are the ones that commit these things predominantly. I can't think of anyone else who ever wears, that kind of overcoat, boom, other than people like him. Got to be very careful how I address this, don't I? Don't want to get booted off YouTube again for, Anyway, he also wrote in the UK government to say that he was inconvenienced by the policy merits. He said justice is a devolved issue, so Scottish ministers do not have to adopt Westminster policies. No, they don't. Not for that. The UK government did seek a legislative consent motion to allow them to amend the law in Scotland, but this was rejected by the SNP administration. Not then by the government of Scotland. Interesting. It's a party political matter now, is it? Mandatory lie detector tests were introduced after Usman Khan tricked probation staff into believing he was a reformed character before going on to attack graduates Jack Merritt and Saskia Jones their ages during a rehabilitation conference in Fishmongers Hall in London in November 19. He was later shot by police minutes later on London Bridge, and nobody cared. Nobody cared. In the first 2 years of their use, a total of 46 offenders have been forced to undergo the tests. 6 of them were then recalled to prison before they took it for breaching other conditions of their licence, while a 7th was automatically jailed after refusing to do it. You have to ask, why is he refusing? It's because he's a very naughty boy and he's probably planning another attack. Then, of the 39 other offenders who took the test, 3 of them were recalled after admitting information that led to probation staff to discover a breach on their licence. The UK government's Justice Secretary, Alex Chalk, welcomed the success of the policy. You're locking up people who want to do us harm. Well done. Don't have a problem with that. Anyone who has a problem with that, for example, Humza Yousaf, obviously does not have the safety of his citizens at heart, and he's quite happy to let the tourists do their thing, because the tourists are people like him. He said, this is the next step in using technology. Sorry, Alex Chalk was saying that he was welcoming this. This is not Humza Yousaf speaking. This is Alex Chalk speaking. He said, this is the next step in using technology to ramp up the supervision of these offenders once they are released from prison. With the evidence showing that polygraph testing can be a vital tool in our fight against it. With even stricter conditions, anyone who poses a threat to the public can be put back behind bars. I think they should just be used blindly and randomly. Go in and randomly select people who appear to be likely to do these things. Scottish Conservative Shadow Justice Secretary Russell Findlay said, tourism is indiscriminate and the SNP's ministers must review their refusal to use lie detectors to help keep people safe. They should not attempt to play constitutional games over such a serious issue, and that's of course all it is. It's division. Let's have a different thing up here so that we can then use that as a wedge to pull Scotland away from the United Kingdom. Meanwhile, people may very well die as a result of people very much like Humza Yousaf. Anyway, I'll stop there and I shall come up. So, what do you think? Should they be used? Should they be used more often? Should they be used indiscriminately? Should everyone leaving prison do this, regardless of the crime? And let's keep all criminals, regardless of what they do in prison, longer. If you can't pass the polygraph, then back you go. If you refuse to take it, back you go. and then just keep doing it and keep putting them back in prison until they pass the polygraph. And even when they pass it, monitor them for the rest of their lives. Well, not obviously if you're just minor criming it, but a certain group, people like Humza Yousaf, who found themselves in prison for that particular offence, need to be monitored for the rest of their lives. Everything they do, monitored, phones, listened to, followed. Personally, I shouldn't. I don't think they should. I just think, like I say, you should put them on a plane and export them to, somewhere, anywhere. Somewhere that they'd be more appreciated, put it that way. Anyway, I shall stop there. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that has given you food for thought. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And remember, your chances of actually dying are quite low, but not zero. Bye.